Welcome back, everyone. Week 11. What a week we had last week. The weather in Cleveland was, well, as we predicted, crazy, but I couldn't believe the delay of the game. It got me a little nervous. What do you think, Sean? Did you, first, actually, you know what? Before we get into that, I'm so excited. I forgot to even introduce people. Tonight I'm joined with meteorologist Sean Bratton, and we have a special guest today. His lovely wife, Katie Fitzpatrick, not to be confused with the wife of Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I'm still going to call her Fitzmagic. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Good. Happy to be here.
So we do have Katie on today, which is awesome. It's really cool to see, have a different point of view that, we talk all together every week, but it'll be great to hear a new set of view from your perspective, especially married to Sean. I'm sure you like to keep things from him. I know you guys are not in the same league, right? Are you guys in the same league?
No, we're actually not. So Katie took over a league for me and graciously accepted to take over the lead, and she's been into it this year.
I am. I mean, I'm usually into it. I came in second place in my league last year, just shy of the championship. I've been playing for a while. I know what I'm doing.
So we'll get into that a little bit later with your history, but we want to kind of drive the conversation, and a very important question that we like to ask guests on our show. What do you think about when you're doing a sit-start decision, and do you ever even think about whether, and if you did, what players would you really think about?
Yeah, no, I definitely think about weather, and I think when weather comes to mind, I feel like there's three positions that are probably impacted most by weather: kicker, QB, and wide receiver. So I'm looking at the wind, I'm looking at the precipitation, and getting a sense of if there's a lot there, I might try to look for other options where the weather's better or they're in a dome.
So Katie, if you had a player playing when the Texans played Cleveland last week, what would be going through your mind when you're watching that game? It's like, oh my God, there's a weather delay. Colin already brought this up. It's raining, it's pouring. The winds, by the way, got up to 71 miles an hour during that game as a gust. What would be going through your mind?
Hoping I don't have anybody playing in that game.
Exactly, right?
Going back to that game, Sean, I was actually almost worried that because they actually called a delay, the players actually would be playing in okay conditions, but the winds that we saw were sustained. If anyone saw on Twitter last week, I did post some interesting videos. I was watching the game live. The Texans opted for a 49-yard, quick punt kick instead of a field goal.
Yeah, it was a fake field goal, and they just pooched it. They did a pooch punt and got it within the 10-yard line. A brilliant play because they were not going to make that field goal. I think there was another attempt to make a field goal, maybe even a little bit closer, and it was no good.
No, I think it was a 51-yard. I think they went for a 51. I think it was.
Was it 51? Yeah.
I think maybe it might be wrong. Someone should fact check me.
The winds in that game got up to 71 miles an hour. That's when the thunderstorm came through. There was an initial delay for that game because of the thunderstorms, torrential downpours, incredibly windy. And like you, Colin, I was like, man, I wonder if this weather is going to die down with the passage of that frontal boundary. And the winds still remained strong. They were 30 sustained with 45-mile-an-hour gusts. And we saw that the score of that game was only 10-7, only 17 total points scored in that game. And both quarterbacks really struggled. Only one touchdown between them. Baker Mayfield had 132 yards. Deshaun Watson about 163 with the touchdown. But the big headline in this game was the running game for the Browns. You had Nick Chubb, 19 carries for 126 and a score. Kareem Hunt, 19 carries, 104 yards. They just ran all over the susceptible Texans for big gains. This tells us also, teams, when they're playing in really bad conditions and they trust their running backs, they're going to go to them.
Yeah, and I think that's what hurt the Texans. They don't really have a solid running game. I mean, Duke Johnson, and I think David Johnson was hurt.
Yeah,
so
he was.
So, it really showed. And you saw, Fuller. Fuller's a deep threat, but there really wasn't a deep threat here for him. He didn't really sorry, I'm speechless at the game.
Yeah, it was. He only had 5 catches for 38 yards. And I think the Vegas bet for this was Will Fuller plus or minus 40 yards.
Yeah, I
And
think the over was 56 actually, 56 yards.
Oh, it was 56. Okay, so and people were actually like, "Oh my God, I'm going to take this, right? This is an easy bet." But with those conditions, Deshaun Watson, at least to start the game, was not able to get the ball downfield at all. And yeah, to the running game, Duke Johnson only had 14 carries for 54 yards, but they just weren't able to sustain a drive in this one. Deshaun Watson did have some rushing. He always offers you a good baseline, but it was a struggle in that game throughout. But it was fun. It was a fun game, even though there wasn't a lot of scoring just because of the weather.
So Katie, seeing what you saw from the impacts of that weather game and now being married to Sean, a fantasy football weather guy, do you think that prospectively you're going to incorporate weather even more into your decisions?
Leading the witness.
Absolutely. I mean, especially, I think, especially when it's extreme, right? I think that game proves that weather has an impact on fantasy production. And you guys kind of hit on the point that I was mentioning, that if I'm going to play any player in those games, it's going to be the running back, because feed the running back so they don't have to get it in the air and deal with the conditions.
All you skeptics, you heard it from a third party. Believe that weather impacts football.
Yeah. And then we had another game quickly as well.
Yeah, it's going to. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to quickly, this one, this was a little bit higher scoring when Ravens came to town against New England. We did have that front pass by. There was pretty steady rain rates. I believe they got around about a quarter of an inch of rain during that game. Cam Newton continues to struggle. He only had 118 yards in the air and a TD. He did get you he got you actually 11 carries, but only for 21 yards. So he struggled a little bit there too. But Lamar Jackson actually did okay in this one, surprisingly. Almost 250 yards and 2 TDs in an interception. And he had 55 yards on the ground as well. But still not quite the production we'd like to see from Lamar Jackson, but he actually performed okay. But Cam Newton again struggled in this one.
I don't know if Cam's struggles are weather related. I think there's more to it than that. I'm not going to blame weather. I'm going to blame other things.
You bring up a point. I mean, he has been struggling this entire year. This whole offense for New England has been struggling this year. And he only has, I believe, like 2 or 3, maybe 3 touchdowns through the air so far this year. And he just is not giving you the baseline that we need from a Cam Newton quarterback.
You remember after his first game, everyone was questioning his extension because he got such a minimal contract this year. And then, then we've seen the rest of the year. I think the Patriots are onto something. So this week, not really seeing much. We'd like to bring up our weather table, impact table, so everyone could see that up on the screen. All green. We don't really. I love the green because it's a great color, but I think that it's not good for us because there's not a lot of weather to talk about. I mean, Sean, you did see that there's one game that we are watching, and again, it's in Cleveland. I mean,
yeah, this is just like ground zero for weather this year. This would be the 3rd Cleveland game in which we've had a weather impact. Now, we're not anticipating any extreme impacts, nothing like we saw this week, especially from a wind perspective. Winds will actually be relatively light, but we do have an area of low pressure tracking across the Midwest. And with that, it's actually going to be developing as it tracks across Cleveland. So it's not going to be a very strong storm. As you can see on the map here, you're looking at the yellows and some of the greens there. And the Cleveland, there we go. If you could point out Cleveland there for us right there. During game time, this is 18Z. They actually have the 4 o'clock game, so they're going to be a little bit later. But we do expect some rain to pass through that area for game time. Now, with that being said, this is not going to be torrential downpours. There may be some steady rain rates, but nothing considerable that we think is going to severely impact conditions. Now, you have the Eagles coming to town, and Carson Wentz has been just struggling this year. He's just been very spotty, barely put up 200 yards against the Giants. Now he's coming to Cleveland, where we could have some rain. Cleveland's actually been okay defensively. They've been a little bit of a good spot start as well. They're actually my defensive pick of the week. So I'm not expecting a ton of offense here. The over-under on this is 47 points. I think that's a little bit high. But weather can maybe play. We're going to be monitoring this because we're not expecting an extreme impact, but we're going to be monitoring it because there could be some. There could be something going on there for
Sean,
Sunday.
Wentz, like you said, one game over 300 yards. That's it against the Giants. I know that Giants have a decent secondary, but it's not like they're getting 300 yards on a decent team.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just been. He had like I think 208 yards against the Giants. He had no TDs, no
Oh, yeah.
interceptions.
He had
So
359 and then 208. Yeah.
it's like
Yep.
almost like he's playing super safe. So
Yep.
I mean, I, I don't know what to expect. If things get a little bit wet there and the conditions start to deteriorate, am I starting Wentz against Cleveland in this one? I'm not happy about it. I'm not. I'd be looking for somebody else. I'm definitely not picking him up in DFS. And same story for Baker Mayfield for that matter.
Yep.
So
So
but we'll
before
keep
we go back
monitoring that, but nothing to really, no incredible take home points at this point, just because the weather does look marginal.
So before we go back to Kate, anything else, Sean, you want to hit on the forecast or the previous games last week?
No. I think that's about it. We may get a little bit of rain for the Seattle game on Thursday, but again, not a major event. They're actually almost like a partial dome anyway, so they're a little bit safe from the weather regardless. But yeah, no other major impacts to talk about. Most of the country is in the clear, as we like to say. So yeah, not a lot to talk about weather-wise this week.
In the fantasy football weather guy green. Okay, so back to Katie. I do have to say, and I don't mean to bring this up and embarrass you, but it's not surprising that there's a whiteboard behind you. There's always been a whiteboard. Sean, and for the viewers that don't know this, Sean and his friend Mike, they lived together and they always had whiteboards and they would always have problems up on them. And even knowing Sean post college through young adult to now an old man, whiteboards are everywhere in his life, and Starbucks. Maybe Starbucks could sponsor us. Nice. But anyway, that's funny.
Yeah,
So,
it is. No, it's a staple in the Bratton household, a whiteboard.
how long have you been playing fantasy, and what's your earliest fantasy memory that got you really excited about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing fantasy for a long time. I want to say 14 or 15 years at this point. I'm dating myself. I remember I had never played until I'd finished up college, and I was at my first job, and they were starting a company fantasy football league, and I said, sure, I'll play. I don't know much about it, but I know a lot about football, and I got addicted. I have a very type A addictive personality, and I was obsessed, so I had a ton of fun. For a while, I was actually the commish of an all-ladies league for several years, and then I just realized being commish is a lot of work. I didn't want to do it.
I know.
Colin has tons of stories.
Oh, I agree. So,
Katie, real quick, what was the criteria the girls would typically use to select their players?
Okay, the first few seasons it was rough, but then they got the hang of it. But I mean, I'm not going to lie. There were times where I did hear, oh, I know him. He dated a Kardashian. I'll pick him. Oh, no, I can't pick him. He's mean to puppies. So there were definitely those types of lines used during the draft party in earlier years. But after a few years, all the ladies got really into it. They started doing their research and they started to get a lot better. I was kicking butt the first couple of years, and then they stepped up their game.
So out of 14 years, have you ever taken home the trophy?
Yeah, I think 2 or 3 times.
Sean, does that beat you? Sean's only one out.
I have 3 trophies. Maybe just 4. 3 or 4 trophies.
2 in our league, though. 2 in our.
Yeah, I believe 2.
Yeah. So this year, can you talk us through your team? And then I want to talk about a trade I heard you just pulled off that seems pretty impressive.
Yes, I think it's pretty impressive. Yeah, my team is struggling a little bit this year. I'm in 9th out of 12th place, but most of the teams are hovering at 5-5. So which is me. So I still have a shot here. And to your point, we'll talk about my impressive trade. I think who I've got on my team, I'm really strong at the running back position. I'm struggling quite a bit at the wide receiver, and I was struggling at quarterback, but that's since changed. Right now, my RBs, I've got Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, and Antonio Gibson, and I've got Ronald Jones on my bench. And then for wide receivers, I've got Cooper Kupp, Godwin, who's just been injured left and right.
Back this
and
week.
then my big pickup that's been good is I picked up T. Higgins off the waiver wires, so that's been huge for me. And then, so I just pulled off a trade where I picked up Chase Edmonds off the waiver wires, and one of the other guys in my league kept desperately needing a running back, and he just kept coming to me and giving me these ridiculously awful trade options. So then he just came back to me for like the fourth time was the charm, and he said, I'll give you Kyler Murray for Chase Edmonds and Jerry Jeudy. And I said, yes, please. And he also gave me Ronald Jones too. So I said, okay, I'll take that.
I didn't know you got Ronald Jones in that deal.
So I feel like honestly after that trade,
You may now have set yourself up for a playoff run.
Yeah.
I can't believe he gave up Ronald Jones.
Yeah.
Sounds like
that's a ridiculous trade.
Sounds like some shenanigans that were going on in our league in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
So, I mean, Sean, do you have any specific questions for Katie? I'm sure you guys talk about fantasy every day and talk about weather at night and then fantasy in the morning. I mean,
it's actually super interesting. I mean, a lot of people when they think of, not to stereotype, but when they think of girls, they don't really think of them being into fantasy. Even if they're in the league, they're not maybe paying attention to it as much. But Katie. But Katie, but listen, like Katie will listen to podcasts. She'll be on her phone constantly doing research, asking me and other people like about trades and about going on the waiver wire. Who do I pick up? She's like really into it. And it makes it a lot of fun because that's something that we bond over, that we talk about quite a bit, is her fantasy team and who she should start and, what's going on. So she's actually been incredible, and she always has been really into it, but especially this year because this is actually the highest buy-in. This is a big, 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 big pot, hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. So Katie's heading that team. I gave her the responsibility, and she's taking it really seriously. So
you know what it sounds like?
Doing a really good job this year.
It sounds like when we have an opening in our league. Welcome to our league, Katie.
I don't know how Sean would feel about that.
I would relish the day to have you in the league against Sean.
Oh well, thank you.
No.
So, I just got to ask, Sean, I've known Sean for, I don't know, 20 years. No, maybe 50. I don't know. It's
15
been a long
years. That sounds good.
Yeah, whatever. I know he's got some interesting quirks. What's it like to live with Sean the meteorologist?
Sean the meteorologist, the poor guy. Anytime there's any sort of weather event, anything around family events, it's like every single Fitzpatrick family member is texting Sean, should I be worried about this? What does this mean? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So he has to deal with that a lot. And then he feels a lot of pressure to get it right.
Us meteorologists, we're always under the gun here.
Yeah. So that's pretty entertaining. One of my favorite stories. We were at a work dinner for me once, and my boss was asking him if he was going to get on a flight because the weather was supposed to be bad. And he's like, oh, yeah, you'll be fine. And then he woke up the next morning, and you guys know better than me, shifted patterns or whatever, and my boss was screwed. And he's sitting there, text your boss, tell him he's going to miss his flight. I don't want him to think I'm a bad meteorologist. And I'm like, I have a feeling he doesn't even remember, and I don't think he's going to be that upset about it.
Yeah, he did. He brought it up.
No, he didn't.
Oh, okay.
So is there any last thing you want to say? We'll keep you on. We're going to do our DFS discussion next. You're more than welcome to join, or you can jump off. Up to you. Yeah. We'd love to have you. But is there any last... Go ahead, Sean.
I got to ask you, have you ever, since your last name is Fitzpatrick, have you ever been confused with the Ryan Fitzpatrick? Or married, I should say, been confused as people thinking you're related to or married to.
Yeah, once in an airport returning a rental car, the rental car person said, Fitzpatrick, are you married to the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills? Because he's been with every single team.
I wish, but no.
And I said, no, I just thought it was funny because Fitzpatrick's a pretty common last name. Like, why is your first assumption that I'm married to an NFL quarterback?
But now you're repping his jersey.
Yeah. Well, I also think that maybe, that's a good win for you that, people assume you're married to an NFL quarterback.
I'll take it.
Sean, fantasy football weather guy, he's our quarterback.
Damn straight.
Okay. So, again, thank you for coming on. It's great. We're gonna have our DFS discussion. Love to have you stay on. But Sean, do you want to walk us through? We're gonna do. You had a fancy name for this segment. I didn't write it down.
No, not fancy. It's just Sean's DFS picks.
Oh wait,
Very
that's
original.
fancy.
Very, very creative.
Yeah. Remember that?
creative man.
Sean DFS fantasy picks. So, starting with the QB, Sean, I know you kind of went through two scenarios. You want to talk me through them?
Yeah, so we're going to go through each position here. We're going to start at the quarterback. Now, the big news is that everyone probably knows is Drew Brees is out of commission, multiple broken ribs, collapsed lung. They're giving him a possible timetable of a couple weeks. That's not going to happen. He's going to be out longer than that. Probably won't even have him for the fantasy playoffs. So the question is, do we pick up Jameis Winston? So Jameis Winston right now is at $5,900 and DraftKings. And then we have Ben Roethlisberger, who's going to be facing off against the Jacksonville Jaguars at $6,700. Now, Winston.
Sean, I got to correct you and interrupt you. I'm on. I'm on FanDuel. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, this is DraftKings, and maybe FanDuel may be different.
It's higher.
So actually, I'm going to throw this question to Katie first. Katie, you have Jameis Winston, who's starting. We don't know what to expect. He's a gunslinger, but prone to mistakes. So I look at him as a potential upside here, but maybe a low floor. Or you got Roethlisberger, all of his weapons working on all cylinders with Johnson, Claypool, Schuster. They're going against Jacksonville, bottom tier defense. They are traveling to Jacksonville. Now, there is a $800 difference between these players. Do you have a preference if you had to pick one of these guys up?
I would go with Roethlisberger. I don't care that he's more. I think Jameis Winston is too risky. It's his first game starting, right? I mean, yes, he went in last game, but him and Drew Brees have very different styles of play. He's a deep
one
ball
throws
guy.
interceptions and one throws touchdowns.
Yeah, and I don't know how that's going to mesh as well first game starting with the Saints system.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but my thought here is if you're going a little bit lower on other positions, like if you have a safe floor on some of the other positions, but maybe not quite the ceiling, Jameis Winston may be a good ceiling pick for you. I look at him as a feast and famine or famine option this week. He's going against Atlanta. Now, Atlanta, you may think, oh, awful defense. But since they fired their coach, I mean, what's been going on there?
They've been better.
They've been better. Yeah. They've actually been a middle tier passing defense. Only giving up around 250 to 260 yards in their last three matchups. So I am a little bit worried about Winston going into this one, but I think if he lets it loose, he has the potential at least to get 2 or 3 TDs. But you're right. I think his floor is low. Coming into a new system, they may play a conservative. You have Taysom Hill there. What is he going to do? What's going to be his involvement? We have a lot of question marks. But if you need that high ceiling at a low price tag, only $5,900, it's not a bad player to take potentially.
I'm actually showing Jameson Winston. Okay, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I'm don't listen to me. But
that's all right.
Going now, switching gears on a low price tag to your next quarterback matchup you were talking to me about today for $5,500, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, so we have a matchup, Washington and Cincinnati, and you have Joe Burrow, Alex Smith. Now, Alex Smith actually played pretty well against Detroit. He was impressive. Now, I don't believe he had a touchdown, but he threw for over 300 yards.
Way over 300. It was like 390 or something.
Yeah, 390. Yeah, he was actually close to 400.
Yeah, 390. Yeah.
Now he's starting to get integrated in this system. He's starting to get used to his weapons with especially J.D. McKissick. I mean, J.D. McKissick is getting like 15 targets a game. So he is the drop. He's just dropping it off to J.D. McKissick. It feels like every other throw. But he's showing maybe a propensity to move the ball against the Cincinnati defense. Now on the other side of the ball, you got Joe Burrow, who has been able to produce this season. But I'm a little worried about him going up against the pass rush of the Washington football team. Okay, yeah, Chase Young, he's going to be chasing down the QB. I'm a little bit worried about Joe Burrow here. I'm thinking that he may be prone to some turnovers, maybe getting some sacks. I'm worried about their ability to move the ball. Now, Washington has given up the least amount of passing yards per game in the league at under 195 yards per game. So, Katie, I'm going to throw this question to you. Given the $5,300 price tag for Alex Smith, $5,500 price tag for Joe Burrow, who would you go with?
I'm going Alex Smith. I think he's been playing in that system for a while. He's getting used to it. I think that's the better way. Burrow, to your point, he's going to get crushed. I think bad offensive line, pass rush. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think the safer play here is an Alex Smith. I think he just is a more conservative player. He just is. He knows how to make the plays when he needs to. He's not going to get you a 4 TD 500-yard game. But he knows how to move the ball. I think he's going to give you a safer floor. Joe Burrow, I am a little bit worried, but I feel like he could have I am worried about I'm just worried about the pass rush and the relevance of that pass rush and their secondary. So I think I'm going to go Alex Smith here as well. But I just have a feeling about Joe Burrow this week. I don't know why, because all the stats are telling me not to take him. But I just have a feeling like he's going to be able to make some big plays in this one.
Hey, I always follow my gut in fantasy. So I'm not going to go to running back. I'm going to leave that to the end because you have a very interesting position on running backs this week. So wide receivers, this is where you're going for value. It seems from our conversation, you got 3 of them.
Yeah, I'm doing super value picks here, as we'll talk about in a minute. I'm paying up for my RBs this week. Wide receivers, some of the guys that I'm targeting are Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. He has 4 games already this year of over 100 yards. Him and Case Keenum are just on fire right now. They're just getting things done. I really like the way that they connected against the Chicago Bears. And he put up some big catches, some big yards in that one, over 100 yards in that one. Now he's $6,000. He's moving up the boards a little bit as far as his price tag.
He's actually more than that now.
Oh, last time I checked, he was 6,000.
I'm on DraftKings right now, just 6,700.
That's weird. In mine right now, I see 6,000. I'm looking at my lineup. Oh, and I'm sorry, Kirk Cousins. I completely messed up QB there. Kirk Cousins. But yeah, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson hooking up. I'm still going to him. They're playing Dallas. Dallas is not. I just feel like people can make big plays against them, and I think Jefferson is going to be a benefactor of that this week. The other guy, Jacoby Myers, New England. New England is going to Houston, and he has just been lighting it up recently. He's been getting 10-plus targets in almost every matchup, getting 10-plus fantasy points in each of his matchups. He's a safe play at $4,900. That's what I have him at right now when I'm looking at my DraftKings. And then the other guy is, what's that?
I'm not going to debate the price anymore. We'll just go with your values.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what I'm looking at my card right here.
No, fine.
But the other guy I'm looking at is Mike Williams. You got Justin Herbert, who is just rookie of the year, almost status right now.
Whoa. Let's table that conversation.
I mean, I have him. I have a huge stock in him in one of our league. So I'm rooting for him to continue on his pace. He's basically getting me 30-plus points every game. So I'm hoping that continues.
Josh Allen's rookie of the year. But
okay, well, I'm gonna say Herbert, just for sake of argument.
Mike Williams' numbers are pretty good. He hasn't had the consistency of Jefferson. I'm looking at his stats right now.
Yeah.
Playing the Jets though.
Yeah, he's playing the Jets, and he's a deep threat. And Herbert has shown that he has a propensity to go to him. In his last couple games, 8 targets, 5 catches, 7 targets, 5 catches, and then he did have a dud recently, only 5 targets and 2. But I think he's a little bit more of a boom bust candidate here, but I'm going to trust him going against the Jets. We have some fans of the show that are Jets fans, and we know how they usually fare in these types of matchups. So he's only $5,100, so he's a pretty low price tag.
So Sean,
for his prudential value.
Where are you spending your money?
Spending my money this week on RBs. And the reason for that is, and just to kind of tie this into the wide receiver discussion, is I don't like who the top prospects this week are at wide receiver, who they're facing, what their matchups look like. And on the other side, for running backs, the lower tier guys you may be trying to target, getting value there, I don't like their matchups. So I'm actually paying up. I'm going to be going with Alvin Kamara, as Atlanta takes on New Orleans, and then I'm going Dalvin Cook, and as they're taking on Dallas. So they're big price tags, but these guys produce week in and week out, not only on the ground but also in the passing game. But so I'm a little bit because Katie brings up a good point. She brings up a good point about New Orleans. She said that, hey, we have a new QB in play here. They may need to change things up. The play calling may change a little bit. Are we confident in Kamara here? I mean, we've seen him not be super productive in certain situations.
I think it's gonna be dependent on his first set. I mean, if Winston looks like a passing threat and he's got command of the offense, Kamara's got a game again. If he gets shut down and it looks like he's not going to be able to do anything, Kamara's value is out the window at $9,000.
Yeah, 9,000. So he's maybe a chalk play at this point. I mean, I still trust they're going to go to him because he's the most definite producer in that lineup, but I am a little bit hesitant there. Dalvin Cook, I think, is just an every week plug and play. He's just a monster on the ground. Can we just
record that Katie brings up a good point here?
We will highlight that. It will be on our highlight reel at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Katie, what are your thoughts on Kamara and Cook?
I would go with Cook in this situation too. Anytime you've got a new quarterback plugged in, I get nervous. I mean, I think he's obviously a good enough player and he's going to get enough touches that he's still going to give you fantasy production. But for the amount of money you're paying, I think I'd rather go Cook.
Yeah. I would agree on that as well. So you may say, hey, if I'm not willing to pay up, I'm only willing to pay up for one of these guys. And it sounds like the unanimous decision is Dalvin Cook. You can't deny him. He's just a monster. We watched him against the Bears on Monday, and the Bears are a good defensive front, and he was stuck for part of the game, but then you saw him to start to break out toward the end. So they will keep giving him the ball. But if you're not going to go with Kamara, I'm actually looking at Kalen Ballage at $5,600 again against the Jets. He has been getting 15 plus carries in the last couple matchups. Eckler's not there. Jackson's not there. Kelly's not really as much in the picture. So I really like Kalen Ballage here, $5,600.
Yeah.
He's also getting involved in the passing game. I think he had 5 or 6 targets last game for 34 yards.
5 targets for 34 yards, or 6 targets, 5 receptions. You're right. And then he's increasing his touches, 15 and then 18. So, linear, progression would say he's going to get, maybe 20.
I think they're gaining trust. I think that system, I think Herbert's gaining trust going in the passing game. And he's producing and going against the Jets. Anything can happen. He's only $5,600. So you're talking compared to a $9,000 price tag, you're talking about a $4,400 difference here, or a $3,400 difference. And I think it's a no-brainer to maybe put him in here with that kind of investment. You may be playing in a Dalvin Cook, maybe play a Kalen Ballage as your second spot. What do you think here, Katie? What is your thoughts on Kalen Ballage?
I mean, I think to the point you've got a QB that's figuring things out, and anytime you've got the passing game working, right, it's also going to help the run game because you can switch it up. So I'm fine with that. I like that play.
So Sean, do you have a tight end pick of the week?
Man, tight ends have been so tough. Katie, I'm just going to throw you under the bus here because I feel like nobody could predict what the heck is happening in the tight end landscape. Maybe you'll give us some luck. Like, what do you think about if you had to pick a tight end other than a Travis Kelce? So you can't pick him. Who else would you pick up? Like, who would be somebody you would maybe target that you think and maybe you have confidence in?
No one. I was really excited because I also picked up Goddard off the waivers because somebody dropped him rather than putting him on an IR spot. And so I was pretty excited about that. But since Carson Wentz can't seem to throw the ball accurately to anybody, that hasn't worked out so well.
Could be his week.
True.
Could be his week against Cleveland.
And then, I started with Jared Cook, and then with Michael Thomas being back, that's been garbage. And then I had Gesicki for a while. So I just feel like you just got to pick one, and pick one and hope for the best.
Tight ends are becoming like the kicker where I almost want to get rid of them in my normal leagues because there's only like you get like two tight ends, they'll score 20 points, and then everyone else is 0, 5, 1. And it's like, and if you don't have them, you like could lose a whole week on it. And it's getting to be a glorified blocker in many systems.
It's just really weird. We're not seeing the breakouts that we usually saw. Like a Mark Andrews last year was a breakout. We've seen Zach Ertz be a breakout, obviously Travis Kelce. And it doesn't seem like anybody's really breaking out this year. And that's becoming more of the trend. The guy that I'm looking at here, he's actually had an okay. Now, remember, we're talking about the tight end landscape. But the guy that I'm going to be targeting in DFS is actually going to be Logan Thomas of the Washington football team going against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, over the last 4 games, he played the Giants, got 12 points in our league. Went against Dallas, got 14 points. In both of those games, he had a touchdown. And then we played against the Giants again. Only got about 5 points. So, okay, that was a little bit lower, but it's better than 0, right? It's better than one point. And then last week against Detroit, he almost had 9 points.
Right, but again, no touchdown in the last 2 weeks, Sean. I mean, that's the thing with tight ends, though, right? Is you go for the touchdown risk, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're dependent on that tight end. But I mean, here's the thing: in the last 2 matchups, as with Alex Smith as the QB, he got 6 targets.
That's right.
3 or 4 receptions. So
for both 6 targets last 2 games with Alex Smith, 6 targets each game, 3 receptions against Giants, 4 against Detroit. So
I think that's a good pick. That's a solid pick.
What is his value? 5,200 you said, or 5,000? What'd you say?
So I need to look up his. Oh, right here. He's $3,300. Logan Thomas. So that's, I mean, $3,300. I mean, you typically tight ends are lower anyway, but that's who I'm targeting. Now I needed to go lower there because of my running backs. So. And then the defensive DFS play, I'm going with Cleveland against who knows what's happening with that Philly offense. It's just so sporadic. I think if we do get weather in that game, Cleveland has shown they can shut teams down when there is weather. They're playing in Cleveland. And, I'm a little worried about Miles Sanders because I think he's a little bit undervalued, but the Cleveland front can play when they need to. So I'm going Cleveland as my defensive play of the week.
Awesome. Katie, again. Well, Sean, I was about to wrap up. I don't want to cut you off if there's any other things you want to talk about, but I was going to thank Katie.
No, I mean, we live in this. I'm just going to pick up this conversation with Katie once we get off the air here. So,
to recap, we do have we are watching potential rain, maybe not heavily impacting the Philly Browns game, but. Stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter at FFWeatherguys. Katie, what a pleasure to have you. I hope you join us again. Sean, it was great seeing you again for another week. Week 11. We only got a couple more weeks of this, and
a couple more weeks, and we got playoffs. So make some. Again, stay tuned with us. We'll try to give you some advice and sit decisions here, and keep you updated on the weather. So,
have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.